Sarge, I can't believe that Dave didn't stand up and salute you when you walked in.
Well, he'll be rewarded later with a Cobra clutch before I leave.
Oh, boy. Thanks, Bully, for getting me in trouble.
Sarge, by looking at Dave LaGreca, do you think he can do 10 push-ups?
I'd be happy if he could do 3.
I could do 10 push-ups, Bully.
Wait a minute. Now you're stretching things there.
Well, maybe I'll do 10 push-ups before you say goodbye with us today. And obviously, Sarge, you're here to promote WrestleMania Access that's taking over Brooklyn Pier 12 in Brooklyn Thursday, April 4th. And that's always one of the big events leading up to WrestleMania.
It is. It's a great time. It's going to be at the Pier 12 in Brooklyn. And tickets, of course, are still available. And you can get those through Ticketmaster. And WrestleMania itself, of course, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Tickets, of course, at the Ticketmasters. And Access is just one of those days when you get a chance to go. A lot of people go for all 4 days, 5 days. But it's just one of those times where you can go in and meet your favorite superstar of today or your legend of yesterday, like Bubba Ray Dudley and Sergeant Slaughters, and it's take photo ops, and they have live matches going on, autograph sessions, memorabilia. They're gonna have the greatest, biggest, most memorabilia ever under one roof this year. I can't wait to see that.
This is going to be fun. Like you said, tickets are already available. What's it like for you? Because, you know, a lot of times when you were wrestling, you didn't get that interaction with the fans. What is it like for you now to be a part of WrestleMania Access and get to talk and shake hands with the fans?
It's great. You know, being an ambassador for the WWE is a great honor. And I was the first one to be put in as an ambassador, and I go all over the world doing special things for the WWE, promoting their pay-per-views and their live events and their networks and live outings with the legends and the superstars, and you know, we had to work hard to get out there to meet our fans. Now they're coming to us, which is great, and we still do a lot of work with Make-A-Wish, and I do a lot with MDA. About 15 or 16 cities around the United States promoting that and raising money, and it's just a great time for everybody to come, especially we're all in one place at one time, and it's a great week. We take over New York and New Jersey, and you got to look out.
Sarge, I find it real interesting that you are this huge ambassador for the WWE right now, the first ever ambassador for the WWE, when Sergeant Slaughter at one time was the be-all and end-it-all of heels within the WWE. So my question to you is, can you take us back to the day that you found out that you weren't going to be this heel no more, that you and Sheik would meet in the aisleway, and Sarge went from mega heel to ultra babyface in basically a snap of a finger?
Yeah, it was actually, Bubba, I was on my second tour of duty. Vince's father was still running the company, and it was the WWF back then. And shortly after that, it became the WWF with Vince taking over. But I had come back, and Vince's father was the one who found me, kind of created me, because I sent him some photos with Pat Patterson, who was coming in for a tryout. And he fell in love with Sergeant Slaughter, and he thought he was the greatest villain of all time. And he was so happy to see me. He said, "I'm glad you're here, and there's nobody better, in or out of the ring as a villain." And I kept, praising me and praising me and praising me. And finally I said to him, "Well, if you think I'm such a great hero, you ought to see me as a villain. You ought to see me as a hero." And he goes, "What do you mean a hero?" And I said, "Well, you got the Iron Sheik, you got Ayatollah Khomeini, the Black Hawks going down, the hostage situation, Marines getting killed at the embassy. We really never got to punch, Ayatollah Khomeini right in the nose, and you got the Iron Sheik here. Why don't we let me go after him? Let the Marines and Sergeant Slaughter go after him." And he goes, "Oh, no. You can never make Sergeant Slaughter a hero. No, not with that drill instructor. In the Marine Corps, you're called a drill instructor. In the Army, there's drill sergeant. So he drill instructor. You're a drill instructor. So I look over his shoulder and I see Vince, our boss of today, kind of big smile on his face, nodding his head. And Vince's father turns around and looks at him. He goes, "Vinny, don't you think about it. Don't you think about it." He said, "It's okay." And so Vince Sr. went to go to the bathroom, and Vince came over to me, Vinny, and he says, "Don't worry about Pops. I'll talk to him." But I love that idea. So we were in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I'd already been in for 1 week, 1 month of performing at the Allentown, Pennsylvania arena there, and I was on the first match of the 3 tapes. Iron Sheik was on the second match as a promo, or second hour, and so all of a sudden here comes Vinny. He says, "You ready?" And I said, "Ready for what?" He goes, "Go after the Iron Sheik." I said, "Really? Tonight?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Give me your best General Patton promo and get out there and do it." So I'm going to send out Blassie, I'm going to send out Iron Sheik, but I'm not going to tell him, anything about this. I want this element of surprise. So I said, okay. So I got 5 minutes to try and think of what I'm going to say about, my country. And so I finally go out there. Iron Sheik has a match, and he's beating up Eddie Gilbert pretty bad, and he won't quit beating him up. So here I come. They play the music, and as I said, I was already on the first hour, and everybody hated me, booed me, and all of a sudden it was like dead silence. And all of a sudden they saw that I was coming out after the Iron Sheik, and he went, yeah, Sergeant Sly. The Marine hymn was blaring, and so I see the Sheik, and we pass each other in the aisleway. He doesn't know what to do because he didn't know it was coming, and Blassie didn't know what to do. So out past me they go, and they go in the locker room. I go in the ring, make sure Eddie's okay, and grab the microphone and started doing a promo. And finally I said, well, there's one thing I've always done, Iron Sheik. If you want war, I'm the guy you want to fight. Because when I was in Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts and high school, grade school, high school, and the Marine Corps, we always did this. And I put my hand over my heart and I started doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I'm telling you that everybody stood on their chairs, put their lighters up in the air, and started doing the Pledge of Allegiance with me. And it was one of the greatest moments of all time in wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. And it just catapulted Sergeant Slaughter and the WWE into where it is today.
Yeah, and also too, Sarge, you were one of the first wrestlers to come to the ring with music.
Yes.
Before you started coming to the ring, I don't really remember wrestlers, having their entrances with music like you did.
No, when I did my first tryout, Vince Sr. brought me in, and he, as I said, we had like 3 tapings in Allentown. Finally, he said, "I want you to go out and do a promo with my son." I never met Vince, his son, at this time. So just go out there and do like a 5-minute promo with him. I want to see what your character's like. I said, okay. He says, "Is there anything I can do to set it up for you?" And I went in my bag and I got a cassette tape out, and I said, "Can you play this music?" And he goes, "Music? What is it?" I said, "It's a Marine Corps hymn." He goes, "You want to play music to go out?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." So he goes to the truck, and Kevin Dunn's father was running the production then, and he comes back. He goes, "Okay, it's all queued up." So it was time for me to go do a promo. It wasn't going to be aired, only taped. And so as I went to walk out, they start playing the music, and Vince puts his arm across my path, stops me. And he used to have like 4 quarters. He'd jingle around, kind of a nervous thing that he had. And so what he was doing was he's hearing the reaction of the fans, music. They never had music before. So then finally he pushed me and got me out the curtain. And as I made my way to Vince to do the promo, I started calling people pukes and maggots and scums and slimes. Stand up and salute your drill sergeant and drill instructor. And they didn't know who I was, and they were mad, and they were yelling at me and spitting at me and all kinds of stuff. And I'd gotten up to Vince now, and our first time seeing each other, meeting each other. So as soon as he starts to talk, I said, "Shut your hole, puke. Who gave you permission to speak?" And he kind of got startled, And so I started berating him, and our Vince is incredibly into working out and got a pristine body, works hard, really hard to, what he has. And I heard that he got $200 haircuts and all this kind of stuff. So I'm making him stand at attention, stick that chest out, you maggot, and put that stomach in, and stand at attention. And I'm yelling in his ear, and he's going along with it. Finally, I take my swagger stick, and I went up and down his hair, messed up his hair, and he hated that. And I said, "Who cut your hair, Ray Charles?" He didn't know what to do. So finally, I had a cigar with me, and I heard, I didn't know this, but I heard later that he hated smoke. And so I took a big drag off of my cigar, puffed it, and blew it in his face, and he turned red, purple, and he was glaring at me.
Amazing.
So I walk off, and I get back into the dressing room, and all the kind of the talent that's left there, they're kind of snickering, laughing. That poor guy lost his job before he even got started. So I'm sitting down, taking my combat boots off, and I hear the quarters. Vince's father, here he comes, and walks around me a couple times, motions for me to follow him. We go in this little room, shower area, and he starts walking around me again. Quarters are jingling, and finally he stops in front of me. I figure he's going to really bawl me out. He goes, "That's the greatest character I've ever seen in professional wrestling. You got to start from me right away. Even my son hates you." I said, I can't. I'm still working in Minnesota under the mask, Super Destroyer Mark II. He goes, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get you here." So that's how we all got started. And of course, later on, as Bubba had mentioned, with the turning into the hero with the Iron Sheik, that next week I went to Boston. They had a bookstore signing there at someplace, and Steve Taylor was with me. I know Bubba remembers Steve Taylor is a photographer, and we go to get in this limo, and we get about a block or two from the bookstore, and we can't go any further. Traffic jam. So Steve gets out of the car, runs, see what the problem is, if there's an accident, what's going on. He comes back, and he's like white. He said, "Sarge, they're all here to see you." I said, "Who?" He said, "The people. They're everywhere. So we can't even drive. We got to walk." So I put my stuff on, and we head over there where there's a table with, a line. As soon as I got to the table, they just surrounded the table, and there was people everywhere. And, being in the military, I always look up and check out the perimeters, and I look up at the roofs, and there's people hanging over the roofs. Wow. Cameras. And my daughter, for Christmas one year, bought me a picture that someone took from one of the roofs down onto the scene, and it's in black and white, just tremendous picture. But it was just incredible what happened.
Sarge, one of the great things about the entertainer that you were was, as a villain, you could work with any baby face, and as a hero, you could work with any heel. Mm-hmm. So, current product today, who would Sergeant Slaughter do good business with today, whether you were a villain or a heel, a villain or a hero? Who could you see yourself working with?
Well, definitely a Seth Rollins would be someone I could really enjoy having a match with, me being the villain. As a hero, Brock Lesnar would be a tremendous a match. And AJ Styles, what he does in the ring is pretty incredible. And I could just see him jumping up on that top rope and going to do something, and I clothesline him, and just the way he works and his his in-ring savvy, he's just incredible. And of course, I wouldn't mind wrestling Becky Lynch or Charlotte. I mean, they're as good as some of the guys.
Damn good.
Maybe better.
Yep, absolutely. WrestleMania 35, obviously at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. as we've been talking about WrestleMania Access, Brooklyn Pier 12. Tickets are already on sale, and that starts on Thursday, just before WrestleMania, all that week leading up to WrestleMania 35, even the day of WrestleMania 35. And Sarge, I grew up in New Jersey, so I used to go see wrestling at the Meadowlands. My dad used to take me, and I actually have a program that I had when you wrestled Ric Flair for the NWA Championship.
Right.
And I think this is, and the WWE does a tremendous job with this. It's sports entertainment, families going to be a part of this. So when I think of pro wrestling, even as a child, it's my dad taking me to the matches. Was it your father that got you into pro wrestling?
Yes. My father, we lived on a farm, and we had a one bedroom home, and my sister and I would go to bed in their bed, my mother and father's. And then when it was time for them to go to bed, they would pick us up and put us on a fold-out couch or whatever they had available, and that's where we would wake up. So one night I was tossing and turning, and I hear this noise going on, and I snuck out, climbed over my sister, and walk out, and I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I saw the back of my father in a chair, leaned forward, yelling at the television, and one of my uncles and a couple of neighbors, some other farmers were over there, and they're yelling at the television. Kill that son of a, and the referee's blind, and I didn't know what was going on, and I just kind of watched the black and white television. I instantly fell in love with it, and then my father would let me watch Friday night fights, the old Gillette blue ribbon, Pabst blue ribbon things, and so when we finally progressed and left the farm and moved to Minneapolis, we started watching wrestling pretty steady. It was a live show, 6 to 7. On Saturday nights, and the big treat was we would go with my mother to a grocery store and get our favorite TV dinner or pot pie, and that we would eat that on a TV tray and watch wrestling as a family. That was our deal, and if there was a big a live show that particular night, and they were working toward it, like a Crusher and a Mad Dog Vachon having an altercation, and well, they're going to be fighting tonight at the Minneapolis Auditorium. My dad would jump up and say, "Get your coats on, kids. We're going to the matches." And I just started watching, wrestling all the time, and my friends watched it. I had a friend that was a sports writer, and we used to go to the matches all the time. And when I was home on leave one time, he said, "You want to go watch a pro wrestling training camp?" I said, Yeah. He said, "Well, I'm going to do a story on one." So, okay, so I go with him and go to this old barn out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a ring. It was a boxing ring because it had 4 ropes and as hard as this floor. And there's all these guys training, and Vern Gagne, Billy Robinson were putting them through the test. And I noticed like 5 or 6 of the guys training I wrestled in high school, played football against. And I said, hell, if they can do that, I sure could do that. So then I asked for a volunteer, and being a drill instructor, I knew what that meant. That meant you're in trouble. So I looked around, and there's nobody but me, doesn't have a camera or a notepad. So you want to come on in? Yeah, I guess, So they, stretched me and made me yell Uncle Sam a few times. So I tapped out, and so I went to get out of the ring, and Vern Gagne said, "Where are you going?" So I don't see any reason to stay in here. He said, "Why not?" I said, "Too tough for you?" I said, "No, it's not too tough. I'm letting you put these holes on me." He said, "Oh, what?" And he said, "You think you could do any better?" I said, "I'm better than I'm doing, So we'll get down on all fours. We'll see what you got." So he yells out, "Hey, Rick, you get on him first." Of course, Rick, I wrestled in high school, beat him all the time. And he goes, "I got a bad shoulder, Rick, or coach." And he says, "Get on him, Rick. Come on, let's go." And Rick, of course, is Ric Flair of today, who I grew up with, in Minnesota. And so I pinned Rick, and that didn't go over so well. So they put me with Capatera, and I escaped from him. And they're about to put Cosmo Vasari against me, who was the Iron Sheik of today. And Vern's didn't want to take any chances because Cosmo was only about 108 pounds then. And he said, "Billy, what do you think?" And so Billy called me every possible name you could think of, some that haven't even been created yet today. But so he says, get down on all fours. So when I did, he went to drop his shin against the back of my ankle and break my foot for me or whatever he was trying to do, injure me. And so I came up swinging and fighting, and as they say, the mud, blood, and the beer, and I got the best of them pretty much. So they broke us apart, took us outside, and Vern said, where'd you learn to fight like that, kid? High school? I said, yeah, I wrestled here. Told him my high school, and he says, yeah, what else? I said, the Marine Corps. And he goes, I was in the Marine Corps. He says, well, I'll tell you what, you're somebody I'd like to look into getting into the camp, but I can't do it because they're 8 weeks ahead of you. And I said, well, I'm still in the Marine Corps. I can't, He said, well, if you think about it when you get out. So I went home that night, talked to my dad. He said, yeah, go for it. Why not? I don't want you to be a roofer or whatever. My parents couldn't afford sending me to college, and so I thought, well, I'll follow my dad and go in the Corps, and when I get out, I'll go to college. And I always thought I'd want to be a pro football player. I was a pretty good football player. And so I ended up calling up Vern and got the chance to go and train. And there was like 63 of us that started, and 3 of us made it. Paul Pershman, who was Buddy Rose, was one of them, and Chris Taylor, the Olympic wrestler that got suplexed by the Russian that time.
Yeah.
1980s, I think it was, the Olympics. And so the 3 of us made it. And so I went out to Vancouver, Canada, my first apprenticeship, and went to this sleazy hotel they told me to check in at, Bubba, how they send you places. So
Sure.
I'm at this place for 3 days, trying to figure out, I got there early, and the matches weren't till Monday night at the Vancouver Coliseum. And so I'm looking in the paper to see my name, if I'm who I'm wrestling. And finally I looked and I see Brute Bernard, or Brute, the Brute against this guy and that guy, and Jack Briscoe, the world champion. And so I look down, I don't see my name, and then plus one other match. That was me. Plus one other match. So I had about ready to head up to my room, and a nice looking girl bartender, she says, "Are you new in town?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a wrestler. I'm going to be wrestling tonight." She says, "Or Monday night." And she goes, "Oh, do you know what kind of bar you're in?" And I said, "No, just this is where they sent me." She said, "Well, this is a guy's bar." I said, well, no wonder those guys have been buying me beers, and one guy wanted to push my stool in for me. I said, wait a minute. And so I got out of there in a hurry, and I got to Monday night. I got to walk in, and I was about 2 hours early. I walk in, and there's Jack Briscoe, NWA world champion, chiseled, suntan, smoking a cigarette, reading a book. Walk in there, we're the only ones in there, and he stands up and he sticks out his hand. He says, "I'm Jack Briscoe, NWA world champion, Oklahoma State University." I said, "I'm Bob," and I went to shake his hand, and he goes, "I know who you are." I said, "You know who I am?" He says, "Yeah, anybody beat up Billy Robinson, I got to know who they are." I said, are you just starting?" I said, "Yeah, tonight's my first night." He goes, "Are you here all week?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got a car?" I said, "I got a pickup." He said, "That's even better. Can I ride with you? I'm here all week." I said, "Okay." So, "You got country music? I'll find some." So that was my first encounter.
That's amazing. Bully, think of that first training session. Billy Robinson, Vern Gagne, Ric Flair, Ken Patera, Iron Sheik, and Sergeant Slaughter. Not bad.
I'm laughing my ass off over here, because when he said, that Vern said, "Hey, Rick, you get over here," and Rick's like, "Oh, I got a bad shoulder." Yeah. I'm thinking to myself, I think he's talking about Ric Flair. Holy shit. Yeah. So, Sarge, let me ask you this. Earlier, you were talking about how when you first were in WWE, how Vince Sr. sent you out there unscripted. He just basically gave you a bullet point or two and said, go out there and do what you do. A lot different than the world of the WWE these days. For most people that don't know, you were an agent / producer for probably, 20 years in the WWE?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to work hand in hand with creative and the wrestlers. Would Sergeant Slaughter be able to survive in the WWE today with the way they present their product and how heavily it is under the microscope?
It'd be tough. I look at it now and I go, I wonder if I could do that, because we weren't scripted. We as you said, we were told a point to get to, and we always knew where we wanted to get out at. So we would just ask how much time you want, and we would just ad lib whatever we had to say, who our opponent was, where we were going to wrestle them at. And at that time, as you probably did, Bubba, we would go to hotels when we would land and do promos all day long before we go to the arena to wrestle. And you do one right after the other, and all you had to do was change the opponent or change the event or a venue. So I see some of these guys. Every time I see Paul Heyman, I bow to him and I said, it's incredible what you have to do. I mean, you're the master. You're out there for 15, 20 minutes sometimes, and never says, he just flew it. I mean, and he taught a lot of us, not me so much, but a lot of the guys in his league how to do promos, and he's just a master at it. And I see these, like Seth Rollins and AJ Styles and all these guys that have to do these promos, and I just wonder, could I do that? Because when we would go back, guys like Roddy Piper and I, and we'd go back to do promos, they would give us a script, and I'd look at it, and I'd go to the writer, I would never say anything like this. That's not what the Sarge would say. So he'd say, well, let me go talk to Vince. So they would come back, it'd have a big X on it, and he'd say, Vince said, just do the promo, whatever you do, whatever. So that's how we would do it, and probably still do it today. I don't think I'd have a script if I went there to do some promos now, but it would be difficult. It would be very difficult, and the matches that they have on television are matches that we had at pay-per-views. And
yep, amazing. And
Madison Square Garden, they're having them on television. I mean, I see some tremendous matches that I don't know if we could put up with that or keep up with it.